I feel like we find ourselves be Groundhog Day now, where it's like it's launch week again, and Flight 12 feels like yesterday, but it is launch week, folks. Roll the intro.
And here we go.
This is the final go no-go poll for today's operations.
Full reusability of an engine like this is really something that people haven't done before.
We didn't know what we were doing because it was impossible to know what you were doing. We were the only ones that ever done something like this before.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, ignition.
Back skew.
Separation.
We lost the Raptor vacuum.
Ship FTS is safe.
For final approach to landing site.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another countdown to launch. Because once again, as we pointed to in the outro, it is launch week. We could be as little as three and a bit days away from Starship's 13th test flight, currently net or no earlier than this Thursday, July 16th, 2026, with a launch window opening at 5:45 p.m. Central Time here in the U.S. So lots of good stuff hopefully coming up. And of course, we are going to be jumping right into our pre-launch coverage here. But as normal, I am not the only one who's going to be talking to you on today's stream. We are first joined by Alex. How's it going, Alex?
Hey, Max. I mean, it's launch week again, right? It's a bit of a week. Yeah, it's a bit weird that we're back here with another launch, but hey, look, everything is coming out. All of the paperwork and everything is being released. We'll talk about that as we get closer, not only in this countdown to launch, but also as we get closer to launch other future live streams and whatnot. But definitely lots of things to talk about for this mission.
There absolutely is. Also joined by, I know our backgrounds are very similar. I have Booster in the background and you have Ship in the background. It's kind of nice.
I'm looking back.
Yeah, how's it going? But also joining us on commentary today is Mr. Ryan Weber. How's it going, Ryan?
It's going fantastic. I got a couple of different things behind me, but a couple of different rockets. But it's going great. Yeah, Flight 13 is getting pretty close. It's a lot sooner than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to take them a little bit longer to get things ready. I had said mid-August a while back, and well, looks like it's mid-July. So for once, I'm off by like a month. It happens. As Kevin likes to say, I'm always wrong. So
it does happen. I don't think you're the only one in that boat. I mean, there are a number of us who are like, oh my god, like so. We see these notices posted, NOTAM or TFR or whatever being posted. And we're like, it's a bit early. It'll push like a week or more. No, like everything is progressing towards a launch attempt this Thursday, which is kind of scary, but we will get into that. But I cannot forget to thank our producer, Mr. Jay Keegan, behind the scenes, pushing the buttons and pulling the levers, making the live stream do all the live stream things. And also, for those in chat, feel free to tag us at NASASpaceflight or at NSF, and we will get to your questions as they come and as we get to them. But first, Ryan, I want to come right to you to give us an update on where exactly we are in terms of flight vehicles, because Booster 20 and Ship 40 aren't exactly at the launch site right now, are they?
Nope, they're in their respective bays. So Booster 20 is in Mega Bay 1 getting its final checks, probably getting FTSs installed if it isn't installed. Then Ship is currently still in the front left work stand in Mega Bay 2. It does not have its payload yet. The Starlink loader box is in Star Factory, so it's getting the sats for it, which are going to be, as we'll talk about, there's 20 actual V3 satellites, which is kind of nice. They're going to start testing the stuff on those. Basically, what we're looking at is the next milestone I think we're looking to see is Ship getting placed on a transport stand or going on the stand and then getting loaded with satellites. That's kind of what we're waiting for at this point on that front. And then, of course, road closures for rollout for both of them. The pad itself is in. Pad itself should be ready to go. They were definitely looking over the chopsticks again over the course of the night. They were also doing some welding around the flame trench and everything. I've seen aerial pictures after that 20-second static fire, and they charred that flame trench. But I guess it's not really that cause of a. They did. It's charred. I guess it's not really a cause of concern. I think it was partially to test some stuff with the booster, but also test some of the limits with the trench as well. For testing that record duration super heavy static fire. There's a water truck that goes by right there. I've also been filling up the water systems, so they'll either test the deluge before flight or they're loading it up for flight. But basically, we're just kind of waiting on closures to pop up for rollout of the vehicles whenever stack's going to be. I don't know how quickly they, what the time frame is before flight that they need to stack and have everything hooked up. It's probably it's definitely changed for Block 3 than it did for older vehicles, but right now we'll see if they make the Thursday because the vehicles aren't out there yet. It feels weird that we're this close with no vehicles out at all. I remember back in the day when they would have the stacked for like a week before the flight. So,
but then again, they also rolled Booster 20 out for a static fire and fired it in less than 24 hours after rolling it out. So it's obvious that they can at least prep one part of the vehicle side of the equation in very rapid time. Whether they can do that as well with the ship I guess remains to be seen. But with version 3, I guess we should expect the unexpected in terms of timelines and how fast they can actually move, because it is really strange to see not a ton of like major activity happening around the pad or really visible around Starbase this close to an alleged first launch window, right? So this is, I guess, something we're all still kind of getting used to. And also the fact that Flight 12 feels like it happened last week.
Yeah,
I don't know.
There's more activity around rebuilding pad 1 than there is around pad 2. Like right now, for example, they're getting ready to lift one of the first sections of the service structure. They prefabbed it in 3 sections. They're about to lift one of those probably some point today. And they're driving in sheet piles for the cryo trench, for the commodities trench that'll run from the tank farm to the pad. So there's a lot of work going on at pad 1 and other areas, but I think they're just doing final checkouts over at pad 2 and whatnot as things are basically finished off and they're getting ready for flight. So
coming back to the static fire for a minute, Ryan, would you say, you said it was charred. You said the actual flame trench was charred. Would you say the static fire was sub-Sharpie in terms of temperature?
They probably definitely burned that off. I don't know if they melted any of those panels. I wouldn't be shocked if they melted the aluminum one. Aluminum melts as relatively low temperature on aluminum, but that is also relatively hot as well. But I got to say, looking at the overhead shots, it definitely looked like the trench was glowing after the fact. And I don't know if that's because they overheated everything and it actually, they heated that steel up or not. I don't know if that's the case or whatever. But I would say this, everyone, don't be worried about charring. Don't be worried about discoloration. That stainless steel can tank a lot and still be fine without any issues. And this is something they will fix on 39A and pad 1 and 37 when they go to design those pads and install them. They'll add more water spray onto the walls. They'll add more deluge here and there as they learn how the current system works. And then once more pads are online, I think once pad 1 gets online, they'll basically take pad 2 offline and retrofit the pad. With all the new systems and upgrades as they learn how, from launching multiple times. So it's not something really to be worried about. I guarantee it's something they probably expected to happen as they were learning it, and it's not really that big of an issue. I mean, heck, they're planning to launch in, 75 hours, 24 minutes, and 29 seconds right now. That's kind of what they're planning to do. So clearly what happened, it doesn't really matter that much. Doesn't hurt anything.
No. I mean, it's also only their second time using it for a full flight vehicle, and that was the longest static fire for all 33 engines that they've done on a booster so far. And I think that was around, what was it, 23, 24 seconds, somewhere around there, Ryan, I believe it was, which eclipses, I think, the only one that came close or was longer, I think, was Booster 7, but that fired one engine for, it was only one engine for a longer period of time than we got with Booster 20 and all 33.
No, Booster 20 beat it by, Booster 20 was 24
Did it?
seconds, and Booster 7 was a single engine for 20 seconds. That was August 11th of 2022, when they did they did the autogen test, so the autonomous pressurization system. That was the test where they wanted to test gas pressures off the engine into the tanks, and they did a 20-second single engine static fire onto Fondag. Because that was before they had a deluge. So this one was 33 engines, and at some point, we don't really know for the duration that it was, but at some point that was a static fire that went to full power. We just don't know how long it was at full power for.
Yeah. It was pretty intense regardless, because I think we were all kind of shocked because it just kept going and going and going, and they hadn't throttled down yet, and then they finally brought the throttles back and finally shut down. But I think it's safe to say, like, not only is the launch date or the targeted launch date catching a bit of us off guard, or catching us a bit off guard, English, but also just how long that a static fire happened or was prolonged for as well. So good things to see, though. We like action here. We like to see things progressing in the right direction, but especially if they want to be able to turn this pad around rapidly, I think them being able to launch so soon with this pad still being so brand new, I think bodes well for this this newer pad design, which is going to be implemented across all launch sites for Starbase, both here in Starbase and obviously, and then over at Florida Space Coast, both at Pad 39A and both pads, at least for now, at Space Launch Complex 37. There might be more over there. We'll have to wait and see. But the current plan, as far as we are aware, is only 2 launch towers over there for now. But Alex, go ahead.
I was going to say in relation to it, sorry. Well, I was going to say in relation to the 24-second static fire, I think it partially had to do with the mishap investigation as well, based off the wording of that. And we can, if we could pull it up, it might be a little early to pull it up, but I think it actually has something to do with it because they talked about heating on ascent of engine components, and I wonder if they did a longer duration static fire for that reason, to test that.
That's a good point.
To help close it. So that's a possibility.
Maybe. I mean, that would make a lot of sense. And that is among one of the most extreme environments on Earth, when Super Heavy has all of its engines lit, not just on the launch pad, but also inside the engine structure as well. And also the risk of having no engine shielding around the engines. If something goes wrong, obviously it propagates a lot farther and a lot faster. So yes, we are delighted to see that. But Alex, I want to come to you now for a little bit of a rundown on what we can expect on Flight 13 itself, because SpaceX recently dropped some info yesterday about some of the what is staying the same, and also the changes for Flight 13, both in terms of payload, vehicle, and performance. What can we expect from Starship on Flight 13 than what we saw on Flight 12?
Yeah, so the general plan is very much the same, in the sense that, go southeast in the new sort of launch trajectory that they got on this latest flight, and then, go all the way to the Indian Ocean with the ship. The booster does its splashdown in the Gulf, and then the ship also does its splashdown in the Indian Ocean. And so the overall profile is very much the same. Even the timings, when they talk about, they have the list of timelines and like when everything happens. A bunch of the things is just like by a few seconds, things like liftoff and MECO times and SECO times and all that stuff. Things like, when they deploy the Starlink satellites and whatever, like all of those things only differ by a few seconds or maybe a minute at most. For some of the, like, for example, the entry, I think it's like half a minute earlier or something like that. It's not a big deal, to be honest, in that sense, because it's like way over an hour into the mission. But yeah, the big changes, I think, is so on the booster side of things, they of course introduced changes to the way that they're going to be doing the flip with the ship engine exhaust that pushes the booster away, right? We had on Flight 12, what they did is they would ignite three RVAC engines and then the top sea level one. So if you see the ship sort of like this, right, and it's got the metallic side here, sort of like the opposite here. Hang on, I can use my background. I'm silly. So they will ignite all. Yeah, there we go. So they will ignite all of the 3 RVACs, and then of the sea level engines. Let me see if I can. It's hard when it there. That one, the one that is closest to the leeward. So the metal side, the heat shield side. So that was the idea, because that way you create a thrust imbalance so that it pushes the booster away in the direction that you want. Then of course, as the ship separates, it ignites the other 2 remaining sea level engines. What they're doing right now, or at least based on what we're seeing on the Ship 40 static fire test, will be to ignite the 2 RVACs here and here, along with that sea level engine closest to the leeward. And then as the ship separates, then the other engines come alive, basically. And so that creates that thrust imbalance of pushing away the booster and then, separate the ship. That's sort of the thing that they're going to be changing there. They did explain, as Ryan was saying before, that they also saw some things going on, for example, with the like the heating of the engines as well. Some components that got too much heated during ascent. That's the thing with eliminating shields, that those also protected the engines from their own thermal environment, because even though the exhaust is going down, there's still recirculation that goes up, and even just the radiation from those, like that hot plasma, that hot exhaust coming out of the engine, radiating back into the aft, and so that obviously makes the aft being very, very hot during ascent, and that can have problems with the engines. And they also talk about how during the relight, several engines went out, and at least one of them seemed not happy when it went out, and probably took off a few other engines. They didn't say that officially, but we saw some flashes, right?
Well,
it really seemed like it was not happy.
He definitely did.
Exactly.
Yes.
And we know, at least from prior to Flight 12, that sometimes these Raptor 3 engines, they're very new, and when they shut down quickly, when they abort so quickly, they might actually break. And so it wouldn't be surprising, because they talk about adjusting the ways that the alarms and aborts happen, right? I think it says, along with updates to engine alarms and aborts to match the conditions seen in the multi-engine flight environment. Like, sure, it might be okay when you've got the engine, just one single engine in the test stand, to just shut it down quickly so that the test stand doesn't blow or something like that. But if you've got it along with 32 other engines, might not be the great idea, right? Like, maybe you need a much softer way, perhaps, or different kind of criteria to relight and abort the engine, and that's sort of what it implies at the very least. This is our interpretation of this, to be honest. But yeah, so those are some of the corrections that they've made for the booster side of things. The ship, not only they have made corrections for that RVAC that sort of went out during ascent, they also are including different payloads this time around. Instead of being just simulators and some modified Starlink V2 mini satellites, now they are the real deal. Starlink V3 satellites, 20 of them, and 6 of them are actually, again, fitted with cameras and whatnot to look at the heat shield. From all of that we have seen, we have not seen new footage from those 2 Dodger dogs that they flew on Flight 12, the ones with the cameras and whatnot. So it's gonna be interesting if they get more footage, because I'm not sure if, you have think that maybe they will have released some more footage of those Dodger dogs.
Maybe they didn't get any more.
Yeah, that's sort of the thinking. And this time it's 6 of them instead of 2. So probably giving them more chances. But yeah, they fly with some of the Starlink V3 technology, like the solar arrays. They're going to be extending those. They're going to be using the laser links to connect to the existing Starlink constellation, and of course, As always, there's more heat shield things, sort of like experiments, I guess you can call them, like attachments of sorts on the leeward side. You can also have they mentioned there on the aft skirt of the ship as well. They have included different tile attachments on the main heat shield instead of the leeward. It's on the main heat shield, and they also have, which is an interesting point, load sensing tiles to take measurements as the vehicle experiences higher dynamic pressure on ascent than previous flights, which of course adds stress and to the tile attachments in exchange for increased payload to orbit capability. So yeah, like this is a thing that I've been wondering for a while. Starship, when it goes up, if you compare that to a Falcon 9 profile, it's babysitting its way up to orbit. Like they throttle down the booster at max Q and they pretty much maintain a throttle down for a while. Like they don't push a lot this rocket, even though it does this thing
time.
of like
Yes.
the flips and whatnot. When you look at the curves of the accelerations from the telemetry on the screen and everything, you can guess a lot of things out of that, right? So you can plot the acceleration. You do that for Falcon 9 and it reaches something like almost 4 Gs at MECO and things like that. This thing, I think I've seen some of those graphs in like peak, maybe it's like 3. Like they babysit this thing all the way, trying to go, more gentle. Maybe this time around that will not be the case. We'll see, but I'm excited for that.
Based off those timelines, Alex, it's for Flight 13, it's a little bit slower to get to max Q, but it's faster to MECO on Flight 13 than Flight 12. So it looks like they are not as fast going up to max Q, but once they hit max Q, they punch it. Like I think they're gonna punch it after max Q to make it to MECO a little bit sooner. So that's where they're testing that dynamic pressure, but just between max Q and between MECO. So I'd be curious to see how, like, all of a sudden that instant throttle up of the booster to get to that point. It might look really cool to see.
Yeah, and there was
it already does, because version 3 already gets off the pad so much faster than version 1, especially in version 2, and reaches supersonic speeds alone. What was it, like, oh gosh, was it like 10 or 14 seconds faster on flight 12 compared to flight 11? Like there was a drastic change of how much quicker this vehicle is off the pad in terms of gaining velocity. It's already startling. And the fact that the fact that they're already like just essentially punching it through max Q like this is kind of spooky, because the loads that a vehicle experiences at max Q are kind of alarming, and there's a reason why most rockets throttle down to be as gentle as possible, pushing through this phase of flight. But to really see what version 3 is made of, they kind of have to push it to its limits this early on, because this may be the final truly suborbital launch of Starship that we see, unless they find something else to do. Because it's worth noting that if all does go well here, Flight 14 is probably going orbital. And there have been recent documents released today that are indicative of a Starship return, which we will get to later in the show. But this could be the last true, like, experimental, I guess, quote unquote, suborbital flight of Starship, which is kind of weird. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Ryan, go ahead. You want to say something?
I was going to say, I think I think suborbital flights are still going to be a thing. Like if they do a major change or something, like say they want to test something very, very new out, which is entirely possible. Like they build a ship and a booster, or they build a ship that is wildly different from what they are using. Like they're doing some kind of experiment. I could definitely see them going back to the trajectory of landing in the Indian Ocean for an experimental flight for whatever reason. That wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, if this flight goes well, and the FAA signs off, because the FAA has to sign off on the reentry and everything like that, then we probably won't see a suborbital trajectory for a long time. It'll be all orbital from now on, where they start doing Starlink missions, eventually start flying out the Cape, maybe even on 15, assuming even 14 goes perfect. So you need to have back-to-back perfect flights, and maybe maybe we have a flight out of the Cape. Well, Max doesn't have to go all the way to Starbase to see a Starship launch.
I mean,
So-
it's fun to travel for these, but we've been waiting for Starship in Florida for a number of years now, so it'll be nice to see. But Ryan, speaking of the FAA, actually, that's actually a pretty good segue. As of today, July 13th, the FAA has closed SpaceX's Flight 12 mishap investigation, and Flight 13 can proceed. The statement from the FAA reads, the FAA required investigation of the SpaceX Starship Flight 12 launch mishap is closed. There are no reports of public injury or damage to public property. The FAA oversaw and accepted the findings and corrective actions of the SpaceX-led investigation. The final mishap report cites two most probable root causes of the loss of the Super Heavy booster as heat effects on propulsion system components during the ascent and erroneous engine alarm system settings. SpaceX identified 4 corrective actions, including vehicle hardware and software configuration updates, to prevent a reoccurrence of the event. SpaceX can proceed with Starship Flight 13 launch operations provided all safety and other licensing requirements are met. So, per the FAA, Flight 13 is good to go as of literally today. I think it was this morning when this was dropped. So, good news on that front. I know I was seeing a few questions in chat about if the mishap investigation was closed. And as of today, yes, everything is looking really, really good for Thursday, at least from a regulatory standpoint. But we still have to see vehicles going out to the pad, Rye. I don't know. We don't really have any updates on how they're going because, one, we can't really see in the Mega Bay 1 and Mega Bay 2. But there are no road closures posted at the moment for actual vehicle transports yet, right?
No, there are no rollout closures. And now that I say that, watch them post before we finish this. But I mean, I would expect the booster would be the first one. Ship isn't going to get a rollout closure till after it gets its payload, and it hasn't done that yet. But yeah, so hopefully either today or tomorrow, maybe we'll get those closures for rollout. They might put this thing up right up to the wire if they're not doing any full stack testing at all, where they stack Wednesday morning, like early Wednesday,
close.
or for that matter, I meant like stack Wednesday night, early Thursday morning. They could stack then. I don't know how close to T0 they can have the ship stacked and hooked up to the QD for final checkouts. I don't know what that timeline is off the top of my head. That's probably more internal to SpaceX. But I would assume you would want at least the ship QD hooked up at least like T-minus 8 hours. They start the chill down to 2 to 2.5 hours before launch. So I would assume you wanted at least 6+ hours to check everything over before you have to fully evac the site. But
I think given just how tight the timelines are looking to be, because obviously nothing's published yet, this might indicate that they're not going to try and perform a wet dress rehearsal this time, which is kind of spooky. But I think the confidence gained from how quickly they rolled out Booster 20 for its static fire relative to how quickly or relative to when it rolled out, I think showed a decent amount of confidence that they can roll at least one part of the vehicle out and quickly get it configured for serious operations. And obviously in that case, it was a static fire. It wasn't launch. I mean, there's a lot more that has to go into there, but also not including ship in that equation in terms of vehicle readiness. There's a bit more that they have left to do, but it doesn't seem like that they want to target a wet dress here at all, right, Alex?
Which is funny because based at least on what we've seen from that documentary that they released last week about the ship quick disconnect arm, when they did they did sort of like a partial wet dress rehearsal the day before of the first launch attempt. They loaded partially the tanks and whatever, but they did not get to the final seconds of the countdown. And that is when they released the pin on the QD arm, right? So that then it can swing out at liftoff. Obviously, the swing out is at liftoff. That doesn't happen in a wet dress rehearsal, but they do the unpinning and everything and depressurization and all that. But they did not rehearse any of that because they just cut it off like T-minus 20 minutes or so, like right after engine chill started. So when they went to the launch attempt the day after, Then they had the issue with the arm, and they say in the documentary, this was the first time that we put this arm under flight loads, because it was the very first time they actually went through all of that. Like, that was the very first time they got that far into the countdown with a version 3 stack and Pad 2. And so, just saying, like, sometimes a full wet dress rehearsal is for a reason.
Yes.
I mean, and they had done one, and then they did a partial one, but I guess they just didn't go that far in the count, which is kind of like, well, considering how new everything was.
Well, they did a full one for the booster only, which did not test the ship, which was my point.
Didn't they also disconnect the SQD during the last wet dress?
Yeah.
And we were all kind of confused.
they
showed that on the
they did
on the documentary.
They did. I forgot about that.
They did a full wet dress on the 11th, which was a full
I don't
stack wet
recall
dress rehearsal. They
a
had
full
an
wet
abort.
dress?
I think they had an abort on the 9th. I think they were trying to do one. They had one on the 11th, and then they had that cut off on the 20th, and then they did the launch attempt on the 21st, and then of course they launched on the 22nd. So they did do a wet dress, but I don't think they went far enough into the count to test all the depress and disconnect stuff, which, I mean, I would have done because of how new everything was, but, you know.
I know that they never
are.
got to the point of terminal count of like the last 40 seconds, which was in theory why I was like, yeah, maybe if you have done that, maybe you will have caught that. They confirmed it was the very first time they did it.
Yes. I mean, you live and you learn. It was their first time using this pad for or in a flight configuration. You knew that there was a high likelihood of them bumping into issues of that sort. But I think given the lessons learned from Flight 12 moving on to Flight 13 and the cadence that they want to target, I think this is so far boding pretty well in them being able to move quickly and successfully in terms of what they want to do in their goals. So fingers crossed, Thursday actually may happen, as off guard as many of us are caught by this.
The only thing that I wasn't even, I thought they could do a wet dress, but they could also just do a tanking test to test the system. But they have changed their liquid vapor return on the tank farm. So basically what that is when they go to chill down the lock side, and they have boil off gases and locks used for chill down and stuff like that, a lot of times they just vent it off. And for those who remember, that's what the LOX cannon vents were. There was also a vent that went over the side of the wall. It was also routed to the box fan at one point. Well, this time around, for those who were on the booster static fire stream a couple days ago, those LOX cannons only turned on when they went to completely vent off the entire system, because they now route all this back to a set of tanks. They're doing the same thing for the tower, is what it looks like, based off of a new line that they installed going to the tower and up through the tower. The tower vent will no longer be active during chill down. It'll likely only be for the final purge of the tower systems. So they are returning. It looks like they're returning everything to a pair of tanks, and then either maybe reclaiming it or just at least venting it off. That's the only thing I could think that they might want to test before they go, which would only require a partial load, no evac, no other shenanigans that comes along with a wet dress, that would be a quick chill down load and be done within like 3 or 4 hours. If they roll out in time, if they roll out early, maybe they try to do that. If they're really, really, really pushing for the Thursday, then maybe they just do a launch attempt and work through any issues with it during the launch attempt, if they run into any. But there's a chance that I would not be shocked if they do a quick tanking test to test the ship side of things because we know the booster works, but it would be the ship side of things since they changed some stuff. That's mainly the reason you do a wet dress, is a lot of times is if you have major changes on the pad. I would not be shocked if they do one for the next flight, because they're about to introduce a lot more LN2 tanks. Or at least a tanking test, but they keep changing the tank farm here and there. That's mainly the reason you do those kinds of tests. It helps the vehicles, but it's more of to understand your GSE more than anything else.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll find out, won't we? And there is in fact only one way to find out, and we're just a few days away from we're it's Monday already. That's kind of already breaking my brain. I got here on Saturday and it's already Monday. Crikey. All right, I'm going to hit some support really quickly while I have a moment, because you guys have a lot of good questions that I want to get to as well. But I want to start by thanking Troy for gifting 5 Red Team memberships. Thank you very much, Troy. That is one of the best ways to support us here is by those, and also that is one of the best ways for our viewers to have access to our Discord, and also a whole bunch of other perks here on YouTube as well, with member content and a whole bunch of others. So thank you very much, Troy. We greatly appreciate that. And then a $10 super from Turtle Sanctuary saying, what do I expect to be different on Flight 13? By the 13th flight, I would expect a Jupiter flyby or possibly Neptune. Alex, I think we already covered a majority of what makes Flight 13 so much different, or it's like same but different for Flight 13. I think we covered a majority of that, but I think it's mostly just the actual star. So it's mostly the ship ignition sequence on hot staging, the Starlink payload deploy, the actual Starlink payload deploy, and a couple of other milestones, right?
Yeah, maybe this time getting an actual relight of the Raptor engine in space, which is important for perhaps the next flight after this, which might go to orbit. Like, that's the big milestone, going to orbit, deploying the satellites, and then returning back home. You cannot do that if you cannot do this flight's profile, then you really cannot get to that point. And so that is sort of the point of this flight, not just repeating Flight 12, but actually not repeating the failures of Flight 12. Flight 12 went very well for a new version of the ship in the booster and all that stuff, but you gotta nail all of the milestones, and some of the milestones that were not done, and so now this time around they need to do those and make sure that they can go to the next step.
Yeah, Flight 13 is mainly about further demonstrating the actual capabilities of version 3 before they take the ship fully orbital and try to bring the ship back for a catch attempt, maybe in the next couple of flights, if all goes perfectly, which of course Flight 12 did not, but there were a ton of positives on Flight 12, mind you. I think the most unexpected one was ship still being able to make it to where it wanted to go with a lost RVAC pretty early on during ascent, which I think is pretty nuts.
Showing the cross range on re-entry.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lost RVAC is what doomed Starship's Flight 7 and 8. And I think...
Well, multiple, in fact, but yeah.
Well, multiple, yes.
More than just one RVAC, but yeah, they blew up a center RVAC at one point.
Well, but either way, a lost RVAC, we kind of have a bit of PTSD because we see a lost RVAC and we're like, it's not good. But yeah, Ship 39, despite losing some performance on the way uphill, performed remarkably well. And there was a ton of great footage released on the Part 2 docuseries called Critical Path, released by SpaceX on their website just yesterday or day before, I think it was. So yeah, I think Ship 40, don't lose an RVAC on the way up. I think that's like step number 1. Don't lose an RVAC. Don't lose an engine on the way up. Like that's step number 1. If you can get that done, that makes the rest of your objectives a lot easier to meet.
Yeah, I mean, there's also the other thing as well, because it's probably worth pointing out that future orbital flights won't look that much different. It's still the ship goes into space, deploys the satellites. It's the final parts of what the ship does afterwards that changes. Instead of re-entering over the Indian Ocean, it re-enters over the U.S. or the border with Mexico and whatnot, and then it lands at Starbase or also in the future in Florida. Like, that's sort of the big difference with some of the Starlink launches that we're going to see, probably many of them in the coming months and probably years to come, and the AI satellites and all of those are going to be looking pretty much like these. Like, is the big major difference will be just the end of the ship flight, and hopefully the booster flight as well. It comes back for a catch and whatnot. The exciting flights, in my opinion, are going to be the ones where you get a ship next to another ship, docking each other, and then transferring the propeller and all that. Like, that's the cool thing, where you can see a ship out of another. Like, you can see this thing from another ship. That's the cool stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot more coming, but again, like everything has to go well up until that point for us to even have a chance of that in the near future. I think we've pretty much rolled out that's not going to happen this year unless they manage to pull off a miracle. But it's SpaceX. We've seen them pull off miracles before. All right, I want to hit some questions here while we have a moment. First from Max, M-A-K-S, not me, with actually a really good question here, and I want to toss this, I guess, to whoever wants it. SpaceX mentioned that version 3 max Q pressure is increased compared to version 2. What allowed them to do so? Tile adhesion improvements or increased structural integrity of the nose cone? Who wants that one?
Combination of things. I would assume. Well, they have a new pin design on the for V3 tiles. It's a different design of the pin which attaches the tiles to it. They've also been working on introducing the purple adhesive that they have, which it looks like they've introduced that into the forward flaps of 43 as well. So that's another introduction. Also, the nose cone got a complete redesign back on block 2. The funny thing is they never tested max Q in the new design. For those who remember, nose cone 12 that got put in the nose cone jail and tested, they didn't do that for the new nose cone design. Although I wouldn't be shocked if that was stronger. It's definitely got a lot more internal stringer bracing, and it's a lot more compact. So I think it's a combination of the two. Plus, also the more powerful engines kind of just push it through max Q anyways a little bit more.
Yep.
Plus, I think they've also been incredibly conservative with their vehicles over the last 11 to 12 flights. You have to remember this is still very much a development vehicle. Definitely still a prototype. They're learning it. I mean, they're getting closer and closer to operational status. I mean, the release of the new TEA, which we'll talk about, is a sign towards that, and a lot of the other stuff they're planning to do goes to show they're getting closer and closer to operational status with a vehicle, or at least somewhat operational status. But they've been kind of coddling Starship, to say it, being careful with it, because if they pushed it too hard, of course, you don't want to push something so hard that all of a sudden you crumple it and blow it up on ascent. That would not be good. They've only lost one entire vehicle, one full stack on ascent when it was still attached, and that was Flight 1. They haven't done that one since. So
they lost
that
a bit
wasn't
more
really the pressure
than just out on Flight 1, to be fair.
And then, of course, they've lost the ship on ascent on its own, but that wasn't due to pressures. Yeah. That was due to engine issues mostly. Yep. But yeah, I think they've just been coddling it a little bit.
I'm also wondering what sort of difference in the flight profile there might be during ascent, because this was something that I actually wanted to point out before, where the one thing is the max Q time and the other thing is what the max Q value is. Here they're talking about the max Q value, but the max Q time is also later in the flight. And there's a possibility here that they are both, like Ryan was talking about, pushing only after max Q on the thrust of booster. They might still do the push, and the reason for the late max Q time could be that they're flying a different profile of ascent. If you can imagine, if you just go straight up, your max Q time will be very early because you're going to leave the thickest part of the atmosphere rather quickly. The value of that max Q will be low because you're going to be going straight up, and so you're not going to go very fast. Let's put it that way. Like it takes you very, very little time to go into thicker air, right? Because you're going straight up. If you go more and more horizontal, instead of being straight up, then you're gaining a much higher max Q. Like that pressure increases because you are accelerating, you're gaining velocity, and you're encountering more thicker air. Even though you're leaving into thinner air, but you're still accelerating, right? You're going faster at a same altitude. Let's put it that way, because you're not going straight up. That's the sort of point that I'm trying to make. And we see this kind of thing, for example, in different profiles of Falcon 9 or even other rockets in general, where they try to minimize like the pressures and things like that. In certain profiles, they don't throttle down as much. In other profiles, they do throttle down as much. Like this is very important when it talks about when it comes to this sort of thing. And I'm really curious about if that ascent profile will also change, because if they turn the rocket even more earlier on instead of going straight up for longer, then that means the max Q will be later because it's going to stay in the lower part of the atmosphere for longer, but also it'll be higher because it's going to be pushing it will be accelerating for longer in thicker air. So that's sort of one of the things that I really want to see in this flight, whether you're going to stay lower in the atmosphere, which ironically it sort of gives you another boost in performance from the ship ascent as well.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see.
Question here from Cube. I don't know, DGMD. Asking how much delta V or payload mass would Starship save by not having to perform a boost back burn, either or landing on a boat or an oil platform, or an otherwise downrange landing? I think that's an Alex question.
Yeah, they will get quite a boost. I mean, for example, Falcon 9, a lot of people always talk about, it's 22, 23 tons to low Earth orbit, but that's fully expendable, right? When it's a drone ship landing like Starlink, it can get about 17, maybe 16 if it's a little bit of a higher orbit, right? Because Starlinks, they do get deployed quite low, to be honest. They cheat a little bit with that, quote unquote cheat. It also depends on the inclination and all that stuff, but let's say maximum about 17 metric tons by optimizing trajectories and whatnot. And for RTLS, returning back to the launch site, it's like 13 tons. So you lose about 10 tons out of 23. That's almost half of the performance. So imagine if you were to do a drone ship landing of sorts with the booster, just with a booster, you're probably gaining another, 20, 30 more tons to low Earth orbit. And then if you were to not expend to not return the ship, maybe you can gain another 30, maybe 40 or 50 tons if you count things like flaps and heat shield and everything. A fully expendable Starship can easily do probably 200 tons if the fully reusable one can do 100.
Yeah,
that would be so cool.
That's insane to think about.
Based off of Flight 12, it seems like the payload capability of Starship is like 80 right now. I think someone.
Well, remember the babysitting.
Yeah.
So
and
maybe
if they're
that
babysitting it, then maybe they're. And also, you got to remember the Raptor 3 engines were only running at 250. They want to get them up to 280.
They got one engine out also on the ship.
And they had an engine out on the ship. So the fact that they were still able to push, 37.5 tons of payload, even with an engine out, I mean, it looks like a Block 3 Starship might really be that actual leap in the program that they've been wanting for a while. I think someone calculated the dry mass to be like 166 tons or something like that on the ship, which I think their goal way back in the day was 120. I don't really know how they shave off 40 tons of mass. I don't know how they do that. A lot of the stringers and a lot of the structural reinforcement on the inside is kind of required. They keep adding stuff too. When they keep flying and they keep testing 39.1, which they haven't tested in a while, they've added more and more stringers to it. So I don't know how you strip off mass off the ship. They might just have to deal with the fact that it's around 160 tons. So yeah, which is also funny if you think about it. If that is truly the dry mass of ship, and they go to load they fully load it with Starlink V3s, like they load it with what they're going to do, the 20 Starlink V3s, the bridge crane in Mega Bay 2 wouldn't even be able to pick up the ship. So they can't load it on the center stand. They would have to use both bridge cranes in order to pick the ship up. I just thought about that because those bridge cranes are rated for 180. So if
Ryan realizes things live.
Yeah. Well, I'm just remembering. Yeah, they have to put it on the transport stand, roll the ship out, roll the Pez loader in, then roll the ship behind it like they did with 39. Load it that way. Otherwise, they would have to use both bridge cranes to lift up the ship in Mega Bay 2. So yeah, there you go. Doing math and realizing things live. Yeah.
Well, I think as well they shouldn't have to deal with those for too much longer because the bridge crane in Gigabay should be rated for over 400 tons. Like the one currently in
420.
400. Well, I was gonna say that. I was gonna get there. So Kiko Donchev just recently posted a photo. He's the VP of launch at SpaceX. He posted a photo Gigabay's brand new bridge crane over at the Roberts Road facility at the Kennedy Space Center, and it looks wonderful. But of course, it's rated to carry 420 metric tons. Of course, but also that is what they're going to be using to break over or raise vertical, I guess I should say. What?
I got a question. Is 420 the mass of the crane or the rating of the crane?
This would be the rating.
To be the rating.
Is it?
Yeah,
okay.
it'd be the rating of the crane.
Because the tweet specifically said install the 420-ton crane. So I'm like,
They talked about how they were going to have 400-ton bridge cranes for the transfer aisle. And I guess they decided to make it 420 because they decided to make it 420. And I think the ones that go between the bays in the VAB are 350, if I remember correctly.
It's somewhere around there, I think. I'll have to double check my back snap. I want to say it's
So this is more powerful than that. Which
yes,
yeah.
So in theory, they shouldn't have to worry about that problem for much longer. They
could load it on a work stand and then lift it with that onto a transport stand and roll it out to the pad.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. 5-pound super here from Telstar 86. Yeah, this is really neat. Imagine the onboard views from ship as it docks with another in orbit. Will be epic to see. It'll be like shuttle's fuel tank separating in reverse. Yeah. I think that's something we're all kind of geeking for, because the footage that we did get from one of the Dodger dogs on Flight 12, it was at night, granted, so you could only see the ship silhouette from or the ship being lit up around a dark environment from, I presume, a light, obviously, on the satellite. But that's the first time we've seen an external view of Starship when it's in space. I mean, beyond stage separation, but now imagine two ships just kind of coming together like that. Like, it'd be almost like this never happened, but like an orbiter to orbiter docking. Like we never saw that, and we only really would under worst case scenarios. But kind of would look like that. Go ahead, Rye.
I just once, before it's deorbited, I want Starship to do a flyby of the ISS. Just once, so they can go into the cupola and take pictures of a ship. Just once.
So astronaut Anil Menon is launching from Baikonur, I think, tomorrow morning at like 10:45 a.m. Eastern time, I think it is. Someone fact check me on that, but he's launching to the ISS aboard Soyuz tomorrow. And I think he said publicly on social media that one of his goals is to photograph Flight 13 from the cupola if the orbits line up, which I think they're looking to be somewhat close right now. I could be a little bit off on that, but I think that's something that they're working towards for Flight 13. I know Don Pettit also tried photographing. Oh gosh, what was that? Flight?
I think it
9
was 6.
No, was it 6?
I think it was on the station way earlier. Yeah, hang on.
Oh gosh, it may have been. I thought it was like Flight 9 or 10, but shows you how fast time moves. My brain's fried.
Flight 10
maybe it was Flight 6.
Flight 10 was last August. Well, no, last September.
Gosh.
He was, but yeah.
Was it? No,
yeah,
it was August.
He was from September. He was from September 2024 to April 2025. He actually returned on his
end of August
birthday.
is Flight 10, right? End of August last year.
Yeah. Okay. Well, either way, yes, maybe we'll get some more in-orbit imagery of Starship launching from the one and only Anil Menon. His first trip to space tomorrow morning. So please find a way to watch that launch tomorrow, whether it be from NASA's coverage or whoever else. But I think that Anil has been overdue for a flight for a long time. So Godspeed, Anil. We hope to see you up there happy and healthy.
Yeah. 5:24 p.m. Central is when the flyover occurs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe
you might be able to see the full stack or maybe the venting and whatnot, but the launch itself,
He'll be
not
pretty
maybe
far
if he
past
peeks,
launches.
maybe if he has
minutes.
an angle towards the Terminator or the horizon of Earth, maybe he can see it kind of cresting over, maybe
He's
or
going
something.
the
I don't
opposite
know.
way though. Literally
Is it?
going well. I mean, he's going north. He'd be going the north inclination.
So, in theory, he could have he could have a side-on profile of it from a very
Starship
long
goes
ways
south. Where the question is where is the ISS? If they hit the opening of the window, where's the ISS
Going to be?
24 minutes later.
Well, it's a 90-minute window, so it's a full orbit around the Earth.
He may not be around at all when it happens, depending on a Starship.
If it gets pushed into the window, he may not even. He might be on the other side of the planet when it launches.
Yeah, maybe.
Literally.
That'd be a tragedy.
And then by the time
literally.
he re-enters, he's now on the other side.
That's where the ISS is at T0, I guess, is what Jay said. So I don't think so.
Can we see what it will be like an hour after?
I mean, here we go.
He's changing that. Okay.
He's plugging it in.
Live here at NSF.
Whoa.
Access is you cannot do that, Jay.
Jay, what are you doing?
What are you looking at, Jay?
Who did you make angry to have that? Never mind. I'm not gonna go anymore. I'm not gonna go any more into that.
There it goes.
There we go. Yeah, because 1 hour later will be the re-entry. Let's see.
Yeah.
Ooh, the middle of the Pacific.
Nah. The
it's being covered
orbital
by
mechanics.
The lower
you love it
thirds.
and you hate it.
Yeah, if they were launching at 5:30, then it'd be fine. But they're doing it 15 minutes later and not only that, the next flight will likely be adjusted by another 30 minutes because they're going to keep adjusting it later. Well, that is if the next flight is suborbital, because the reason why they do that is they want a decent amount of sunlight when they go to land in the Indian Ocean. So that's why they launch this late in the day.
Oh, God.
If next flight is an orbital Starlink
mission, be
another
morning launch.
Let's just say we could have those late night Starlinks do be hitting different, don't they?
Stop it.
2 a.m. Starship launch.
No. Stop.
But the problem is though, they can't catch the ship if they do. They can't catch the booster if they do that. So if they want to catch the booster, they have to launch during the day.
Couldn't it be like at 10 a.m. or something like that, and then like 24 hours later they catch the ship or something?
So they could, in theory, I guess, in that front. I mean, if they want to launch and catch both in daytime, they could launch and catch booster. Well, they could launch in Florida, catch booster in Florida, and keep ship in orbit for 24 hours or however long it takes.
Well,
to
that's
have the
flight
orbit line
15.
up.
I'm talking flight 14.
Flight 14.
Okay. Flight 14.
Because flight 14 is very likely to be a time we're not going to be able to expect, because it's likely to be an orbital mission with Starlinks, and they'll actually probably put those Starlinks into an orbital usable inclination to fully test them out, at which point your launch then is dictated on that, and your window is only going to be, I mean, what?
4 hours long, like at the Cape?
It's going to probably be a 4-hour window, like Starlink, and they'll have multiple different T0s they can hit. Plus, it's not going to be instantaneous because we know Starship can hold for like 10, 15 minutes. So this is going to get... Flight 14 could get really, really fun. Oh, boy.
Can you imagine?
Oh, boy.
Max, you remember the sub windows? They still have those. I just no longer post all of them. Yeah, for Starlink launches out of the Cape, they have like a 4-hour window, but they cannot hit every single second. They have like little windows in the middle
like
of the bigger one.
Yep.
So they target those little windows, and they have like dozens of those, and so it's like, but for Falcon 9 they cannot hold. With Starship they can say, oh, we're targeting this launch window, and then they have to hold at T-minus 40 seconds, and then they're like, maybe this other one, and then run through all of the...
I mean, before we even get there, I think Flight 13 has to go well enough. Yes.
Yeah.
13 has to go well enough
true.
before we even get there. And I want to hit this $5 super from Steve as well. If Flight 13 is suborbital, it is. Why are they developing real Starlink? Why are they deploying real Starlink version 3 satellites? Won't they just re-enter and burn up? Yes. But I think, Alex, this is also a question for you.
I will say, you remember when they started deployment of Starlink, how before that they launched the Starlink V0.9 mission or whatever?
Yes.
Like the very early prototypes of
early
Starlink satellites?
Yes.
Exactly. They launched a batch of those. It was like 60 satellites of those. They re-entered eventually, like within a year or something like that. Because they were prototypes. They were basically just to see if the technology was worth it and ramp up the production of those satellites. These are much bigger satellites, so they probably want to be sure that the technology works. They have added like multiple different antennas, like new antennas in that sense, of course. So they have multiple different new things on these satellites. There was like different a recent document that came out, especially talking about getting new frequencies and things like that. Like it's going to be a bit of a different beast compared to the V1 or the V2 satellites.
To use ex-CEO of ULA's quote, Tori Bruno, you want to fly it before you fly it.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, if you fly it on a suborbital mission, it's guaranteed to come back, and you won't have to worry. You won't have to worry about it becoming space junk down the line and causing further problems. So that's why. But yes. All right.
Is that V0.9? I think Jay,
Is it?
pulled up. Yeah, 0.9. That's the very first Starlink stack.
Remember the good old days of them launching just these massive 60 batches, like these massive batches of 60 satellites in a launch, like per launch.
And that's the one where they had to
29.
release the tension rods.
Yep.
Yeah, back
Now
in the
they
day when
actually
had
stay
the
attached.
tension rods, and the tension rods were tracked to go then re-enter.
Yeah. Now the tension rods are the piss dispenser. They just stay
Yes.
there and then.
Yeah. Remember the good old days of when launching Starships wasn't like plane spotting? God, those were the days, right? I kid.
Off they go.
God, this part of my brain still thinks they do this with these larger batches. Still.
Yeah. The funny thing is that they were 60 at the time, but it was because it was like two small satellites connected to it. So it was like two rows. Now it's like the V2 minis are the bigger satellite. It's like the two of those, it's one satellite. And so it's now like 29 of those, which will be almost equivalent to the 60. In capacity, it's actually like 4 times more, which is amazing. And then version 3 satellites are 2 of the V2 mini satellites together and a little bit more, and you get a V3 satellite, and they put two of those together.
I love when we call them V2 minis when it's not a V2 mini anymore because the V2 full
I was
size
just gonna say that.
I know.
I was like, can we just start calling them just Starlink version 2s? Like the only reason we called them Starlink V2 minis is because Starlink version 3, or sorry, Starlink version 2 were going to be the satellites launched by Starship, and the ones launching on Falcon were smaller, hence version 2 mini. But now Starship is launching Starlink version 3. Is it now just can we just now call them Starlink version 2 going forward?
Sure, I will.
I guess.
I'll do it.
Okay,
I'll do it.
I mean, we're still going to say V2 mini just out of muscle memory and habit. You know how it is.
Just to be fair, I mean, they did build a few of the V2s. It's just that they never really got into.
They did.
Massive production or anything like that. But we saw them. They were probably prototypes of those. They obviously changed. Like the V3 satellites are still the same size as the V2s, but they introduced like multiple different extra things, and so they are a little bit heavier, in fact, than the V2s. The V2s used to be about 1.2, 1.3 metric tons. These are 1.7, so put on a little bit of weight. In fact, the amount of weight is about the same as a V2 mini satellite. So it's more like 3 V2 mini satellites now. But the size is still insane. Of 2.
That's insane.
It's crazy.
All right, y'all. But no, we have a very limited amount of time left, but we have one more pretty big topic to cover, and we're going to do it the best we can. Like literally right before the show went live, by probably a couple hours, not even. There was some new documentation released elaborating on a Starship reentry profile, both for a targeted catch and for what's the word? In case of an emergency? Contingency reentry corridors for Starship. See, brain is braining now a little bit. Documentation is up, and the reentry windows are interesting, especially the ones used for contingencies, but also the reentry corridor coming back to Starbase. It's straight over basically the southeastern or the southwestern United States. It's welcome back shuttle.
That is not from a launch out of Starbase. That is if they launch out of the Cape.
Yes.
And then have to return to Starbase.
Yeah.
But so this is that reentry corridor, and so they're basically trying to get approval for this corridor Plus, if they have to splash down in the North Pacific, which at that point you probably wouldn't even include. You probably wouldn't go recover it. The waters up there aren't the greatest, especially when you get close to into the Bering Sea area. You just dunk that thing and sink it. But then the other parts of that is they're slightly expanding the zones, which is just off South America and just off Hawaii. So a couple of expansions of zones, adding a new zone plus a new reentry trajectory. If they have to return to Starbase flying out of the Cape, and basically, as Max said, adding more contingencies for when they become more operational. And I think what they said, this is till October of 2030 for right now, is what they're looking at for some of this stuff. But I wouldn't be surprised if they add more at some point or whatnot, because eventually they're going to need to be able to launch from Starbase, land at the Cape, launch for the Cape, land at Starbase, launch from Louisiana, land at either one, or however they end up doing it, or launch from Vandenberg, land at either one. Like it's going to be, they're going to be introducing a boatload of different reentry trajectories, different splashdown areas for aborts. If for some reason they can't land anywhere, they have to dunk the ship somewhere. There's going to be a lot of these tiered environmental assessments that are going to come out in relation to Starbase and the Cape and everywhere else, that gets attached for just reentry purposes. And it's just going to keep on adding because they're going to need a lot of options when they launch as much as they want to. So it's not really a shocker that this came out, but
prepare for the
use
future.
It maybe next year.
Next year, definitely. Who knows? Depending on what they opt to do for Flight 15, depending on what the timeline looks like for that, maybe 39 is up and ready to fly for 15, and they end up launching out of Florida for that one, catching the booster in Florida, bringing the booster back to Starbase. Don't know. There are a number of options of what they could actually end up doing for 15, but we have no idea what's going to happen beyond 14 at this point, or 13, sorry, to be honest with you, because 13 has to go well enough for anything to proceed in the direction of ship and booster reuse for version 3 down the line. And certainly Florida very much plays into that equation, both at Launch Complex 39A and Space Launch Complex 37. I think, though, so for those of you who, I mean, people do recall this. I mean, when Dragon used to come back to Florida from the ISS, it was always a spectacle, especially when they splashed down on the Atlantic side of Florida, either in Jacksonville, Daytona Beach, or even the Cape, because there was one or two that came down to the Cape. I think the most spectacular one that I saw was when they were coming down to Jacksonville. I think it was Crew 6. It was a nighttime reentry, and nighttime reentries are even better than nighttime launches, because you're not watching something go up. You're watching something come back at multiple times the speed of sound, and you're watching the very long and very vivid plasma trail just streak across the sky.
Starship is going to be so big.
I was just gonna say, like, and that's just Dragon. That's a tiny little capsule, but in the grand scheme of things, right? I mean, Dragon is a pretty big capsule, but it's a capsule. It goes on top of Falcon 9. Starship's upper stage is bigger than a space shuttle orbiter. That plasma trail coming back is going to look absurd, and I hope that we have enough notice to have planning to bring y'all views all along the reentry corridor.
We will
during entry interface. Yeah, we probably will.
The amount of times they want to re-enter this thing. Oh, we're gonna get so many times where we see the thing coming back, and then you get views. Oh, and flip, burn, and catch at 39A or 37.
Yep.
There you go. That's basically what Starship's gonna do.
Yeah, I wonder how long entry interface is going to last, or how visible it's going to be from the ground. But just because of how big, just because of how big Starship really is, and how bright that is going to be during peak heating, I wonder just how visible that's going to be during daylight as well, and not having to limit visibility towards nighttime reentries. So it's going to be fascinating to see. I think there was And was there an older variant of the paperwork here released on the EA from today? I think Alex was pointing about it in the
Yes.
mention. We'll try and get that. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I was telling Jay to repair that because I actually wanted to point out that this is not for like the very first ship catch or the very first ship come back to Starbase, basically. Like, as we were sort of talking about before, this is like that new re-entry corridor and whatnot. That is for when they launch from the Cape and they want to return to Starbase, right? And you may want to do that because, I don't know, you want to, like, maybe the Cape facilities are not ready for that sort of thing. And so this is from the previous one. This was approved actually in February. They started this like at the end of the summer, sort of start of fall, like last year, basically, so like September time frame. And this is for the launch profile out of Starbase. And you may notice, familiar one, because the one on the bottom is the one that Flight 12 did and Flight 13 will do as well.
Yep.
The one up top, flying in between, I think it's Orlando and Jacksonville, that's the other one that was approved as well. And that one, maybe they fly it at some point in the future for more Starlink missions. We'll see when they fly that one, but they are also approved to fly that one. The importance is that this also included the re-entry part as well. And that one tries to go through like, the least habitable places in the border between Mexico and the US. It's weird, that re-entry path, but it's quite wide still. It tries its hardest to avoid big population centers, but still it's going to catch a lot of not only people on the ground, but also aircraft in the air that need to clear the area. Yeah, that's the one.
Good grief. Yeah, Brian, I saw you cringing a bit at the ascent corridor over Florida, because most people who have a general understanding of why spaceports are located where they are, especially in Florida, like you see an entry or an ascent corridor over land, your first reaction is, ew. I think I heard Ryan also doing a similar noise of that when that was on the screen. But at the end of the day, depending on where you want to launch from, where you want to try to launch to, and where and when you want to come back, there's only so much you can do to avoid certain parts of the planet. Like if you're in Florida and you want to launch, like you have such a wide breadth of you have such a wide window to launch into, whether you want to launch polar going south or launch, I think the limit is like 5 or 56 degrees going north to avoid the east coast of the United States.
Wonder why they build a launch site there.
I wonder why. Starbase is similar. Is similar in the fact, obviously, being literally right next to the Gulf, but because you have Florida out to its east, and because you have Cuba and the Yucatan Peninsula down to its southeast, you have a lot more land to try and weave your way in and out of to avoid populated areas as much as possible. And that we saw that firsthand as to why they do that on flights 7 and 8, unfortunately, with ship 33 and 34 not getting to where they need to go and breaking up in the atmosphere. That is precisely why these corridors and these closures exist. But for Starship to even think about utilizing that more northern ascent corridor, it has to be proven incredibly reliable to not come down on those living in Florida, because that's not too far from the Cape, believe it or not. Like the bottom part of that reentry corridor, it's not too far from Cape.
Abort to the
can't
Cape.
Zoom in.
Ship shuts down during ascent and aborts to the Cape.
Like that would be a demonstration of point to point in multiple pieces, I guess.
Yeah. I find hilarious that at one point, like this looked crazy. There was at one point way earlier on in the program. It was not part of official paperwork, but it was sort of suggested by SpaceX in official paperwork that they may try in the future also do polar corridors out of Brownsville, out of the Starbase launchpad, basically.
Dog-legged out.
Sort of like dog leg out, like going over the Gulf and sort of
it's pulling an H3.
Running around. basically that, like turning around and then flying like over. There's like a little bit of a stretch of the Yucatan Peninsula where it's like only a few towns, like very small population there. And so their thresholds and all of the probabilities and everything are low enough that they may try that in the future, but it's like,
the
yeah, we'll see about that. I think it's more
That's
likely
so-
with that Louisiana launch site, because instead of having the dog leg,
Yeah,
just
100%. Because like
straight
having to
south.
see Starship pull a dog like that, like, so for those who aren't familiar, H3 is a Hydrolox rocket that launches out of Japan, out of Tanegashima. And after the SRBs come off the core booster, depending on where it wants to go, it literally has to dogleg and full on like Tokyo drift like 90 degrees to get to where it needs to go
Yeah.
and avoid either. I think it's avoiding a popular fishing area, or maybe there's some other populated areas where it would otherwise be flying over.
I think there's also a
But-
few islands as well that it needs to sort of go
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
But yeah, because if it weren't like straight south, it will hit some of the islands
Yeah.
there. I think, yeah, we can see
But
some
to see
of that
to
there.
see Starship doing that, like that's gonna. I mean, we've seen how strong it is. I mean, we saw
It'll be
we
nuts.
saw Booster 7 and Ship 24 like literally tumbling end over end, and it stayed together
I mean, Starship
until the
can take it.
FTS popped.
That's not an issue.
Yeah, Starship
Yeah.
can take it. Yeah, Starship is a very strong, very, very, very strong vehicle, as it has proven on multiple occasions, whether intentional or not intentional. But yeah, I think. Go ahead.
I just cannot wait until they launch on that northeast trajectory out of Starbase and fly through
God.
Florida. And it's like a jellyfish launch.
Dude.
The amount of people that will just go bonkers about that.
Because like we're all used to seeing launches in Florida, right? Like if you're in that part of the ascent corridor in Florida, like you're used to looking south, like southeast, or just east, depending on where you are, and just seeing like either a little dot in the sky or like a small streak, depending on how close you are or not. But also in that corridor, you could probably have also seen Dragon come back during entry interface coming down to Jacksonville, as it has a couple of times. But it's going to be different seeing Starship come overhead. Like way different, way different, and I cannot wait to see what that looked like. So, I mean, we kind of have a hint of what it might look like because D was in the keys for what was it, flight? Gosh, was that flight 11? I think it was.
I think it was flight
For
9.
Was it
which?
9? Well, D either way, D was in the keys to try and get a
Oh.
view of Starship after Miko.
just in case.
And go ahead. What?
Just in case it.
What?
I'm pretty sure that was Flight 9 because just in case it just blew up on ascent.
And it
Oh,
didn't,
yes.
but it
Yeah,
It
and
started
then
tumbling.
that's when they had the methane diffuser at the top of the forward dome fail, and then they lost control of the vehicle and tumbled and burned up on reentry because that was Ship 35, and then we all know what happened to the next ship after that. But yeah, that was Flight 9.
Yeah, insert infamous Ship 36 reference here, as we have to often. It's like we have to insert one shuttle reference and we have to insert one Ship 36 reference every single time we go on a live show here about Starship. But yeah, we have all that hopefully coming up and to look forward to. But obviously, to get to that point, we need to get Flight 13 off the ground and all looking happy and healthy at that point to even get there. And hopefully we're just a few days from that, because as we said earlier, the targeted launch day for Flight 13 is net July 16th, this Thursday, with the launch window opening at 5:45 p.m. Central Time here in the U.S. That's 6:45 for those on the East Coast and 3:45 p.m. for those on the West Coast of the U.S. So hopefully all goes well. We're not too far away. Lots to demonstrate for Starship this time, both on the booster and the ship. And if all goes well, Flight 14 could be one of the most exciting ones we've seen in a while. Because, guys, as I'm sure you remember, we haven't seen a booster catch since Flight 8 way back in March of last year.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a minute. It's been a minute. So hopefully we have that coming our way. And I don't know what the weather actually looks like yet. I think it's still a bit
It's partly
too
sunny, low
Is it?
winds for like the entire week. It looks based off National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, however you want to say it. It looks
It's NOAA.
it looks fine. I haven't checked the high altitude data, but Brownsville itself and Port Isabel area looks fine. So
Sweet. Well, folks, on that note, I'm going to leave you for today's countdown and launch coverage of Starship Flight 13 coming up in just a few days. And I want to first start by thanking the folks who were on today, starting out with Alex. Thank you very much, Alex.
Yeah, I forgot it was actually Flight 11. It was not Flight 9. I checked back.
See? I knew I wasn't
It is
crazy.
true.
I knew I wasn't crazy.
It is true that for Flight 9, I'm looking back on our things. I think Julia tried not go to the Keys.
Yes. Okay.
She went like further south at the very least in Florida, but it was cloudy. That was the other thing that I was remembering for Flight 9. But yeah, it was cloudy in Florida, and so she couldn't see anything. But hey, they got the twilight sort of jellyfish effect, I guess, on Flight 11. That was it. I was crossing the two things in my brain. But hey, I've done that multiple times. I did that before with the wet dress rehearsals. But anyways, yeah, it's fun to be back on a launch week, and hopefully we get to see Ship 40 getting those now no longer dumplings. It's the actual real deal. So yeah, and all the vehicles rolling out and all that stuff. It's always cool to cover that, and of course the launch itself.
Absolutely. Not too far away now. And also, thank you very much to Ryan Weber.
Pleasure as always. Yeah, can't wait to see Flight 13 go off. Hopefully it goes perfect, and Flight 14 can do everything we talked about, because, of course, we love to realize things while we're on show and realize how crazy that flight might end up being if this goes perfect. So, but I want it to go perfect because, I want to see a booster catch again, and I want to see the Starship program succeed. So, yeah.
100%. And behind the scenes, pushing the buttons and pulling the levers has been the one and only Jay Keegan, making a live stream, do live stream things for all of y'all who are lucky enough to be watching us today. My name is Max Evans. I have been your host for today's countdown to launch coverage, and we will see y'all hopefully in just a couple more days for our next episode. Go Starship.
And here we go.
This is the final go, no-go poll for today's operations.
Full reusability of an engine like this is really something that people haven't done before.
We didn't know what we were doing because it was impossible to know what you were doing. We were the only one who had ever done something like this before.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, ignition.
Backs Q.
Separation.
One Raptor vacuum is off.
We lost the Raptor vacuum.
Ship FTS is safe.
Starship is turning for final approach to landing site.